What's up, guys? So this video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be building a home audio system for my dad. So growing up, I heard him tell stories about systems that he used to have in his sheds. He had Alpine systems in his trucks, and as of recently, he hasn't had any systems to listen to his music, and he thoroughly enjoys music, so I want to change that. I'm using some parts and some speakers that I already had. The receiver I'm going to be using is this Pioneer unit. It matches the power that both his speakers and my speakers will be able to take, so that ends up turning out pretty well. It is an old unit. It doesn't have some of the tuning on it like I would want, but overall it still does a very good job, and at some point I would like to upgrade it, but that'll be down the road. I'm going to be using, for the front, right and left speakers, his two Pioneer CS99As. I love these things. I've only heard them a few times before I got into making this system, but after getting them out, I love them. I think they sound amazing, and you guys will get to see that later in the video. I had two of these subs given to me by a good friend of mine. I had to go through and put a new surround on them because the old surround was completely disintegrated. They were junk. So I was able to put the new surround on them and revive them. I tested them. They all tested good. So I'm going to be using the two of these. They are both 12-inch, and I'm going to have them hooked up to this amplifier. This amplifier is 300 watts output RMS at 4 ohms. Moving on to the speakers I'm going to be building for the rear, right, and left. I'm going to be running them through a set of Dayton crossovers. They're set at 3000 hertz. They handle 300 watts. For the woofer, I'm using this Dayton Audio unit. I think it replicates bass kicks extremely well in the box that I put it in. I was really happy with it, and when matched with the 4-inch and 3-inch full range drivers, they sound really good. So all said and done, these are really pretty cheap speakers. The two full ranges are going to be run in sealed boxes. The 6.5-inch woofer is going to be in a ported box. I have it at a cubic foot, tuned to 44 hertz. These are my port volumes, and this was the volume that I ended up coming up with to make everything fit into the box. You got my internal dimensions, external dimensions. Obviously external volume doesn't matter because it's free air at that point. The 3-inch is up at the top here, the 4-inch is in the middle, and the 6.5 is down at the bottom. So the two full-range speakers, the 3-inch and the 4-inch, are in their little sealed compartments up in the top left, and then the rest of the box is going to be the ported part of the box for the 6.5-inch woofer. So you can see I've got my positive and negative coming in the back of the box there. I'm going to be using T-nuts and bolts to bring that power in. And then once it gets to the crossover here, I've got my leads going out to my woofer. My woofer is 8 ohms. And then my two mid-range or full-range speakers are both 4 ohms. So I've got them wired in series so that ends up being 8 ohms as well. And then obviously at the bottom here you have the port for the woofer. So that's how I've got these speakers set up. The sub box is going to be just a normal sealed box. There's really nothing to it. It's going to be the amp for it is going to be mounted in the back of the box, so I will not be running power into the box with a bolt like I am with these. It'll just be all internal in the amp, since the amp gets its power externally from a wall outlet, and then internally it feeds the subs. So just got home from the store with some maple wood. I was able to ask Dad some questions and figure out a stain color he'd like, and ended up coming up with maple for the wood that I was going to use. So I'm trying to avoid making it obvious that this is going to be for him. Still trying to keep it kind of under the radar, making it for some friends or something like that. So thankfully I was able to put all my parts I need on one sheet. As you can see here, I use Cut List Optimizer to help organize all the parts the most efficient way on the sheet. So I'm going to be using my circular saw to make these cuts here across the board, and then everything else I'll use the table saw. Our table saw does not have extensions, so it's a little harder to cut a full sheet. Cutting it down like that will help me be a little more agile with the table saw, and using the table saw will allow me to rip through those a lot faster and a lot more accurate. So I got the majority of the pieces cut yesterday, and I started getting some of the stuff put together. This is going to be the sub box, being the front, bottom, then the sides. And for some reason, when I cut these out, I ran into a problem where this side was longer. So being retarded, I lined up the bottom, the edge that if I were to line up that side, I could have just flush trimmed off the excess. But instead, I, thinking backwards, lined up that side, and so this side was too tall. So these are all cut on 45s so that the top piece will sit down on here and there will be no exposed plywood like there is along here. So this will all get sanded and all the gaps will get filled in with putty, so it'll just look like a solid piece of wood. And that was what I was going for up here. So these all have to be pretty tight tolerances, and for somehow this ended up being about an 1/8 inch longer. So I put this back on the table saw with it all put together, and was able to take this down an 1/8 inch, and then right here where I couldn't get to, I just took a flat disc and took that down. But I was able to salvage this. So I was kind of debating on what I wanted to do for the feet for these speakers. I debated having the sides come down further, and just having it sit on them, and then having like a little open area underneath the speaker. And I ended up deciding to just cut little squares out of some extra wood I had left over, and I just took the router and rounded both edges. So now there's these little cubes, and one will go on each feet. These 4 are for the sub box, these 8 are for the speaker boxes. I ended up making pretty good progress on all the boxes today. So as you saw, I had to fix part of the sub box this morning. That turned out pretty well. So it's all together, both the top, the bottom, the sides, the front are done. The only thing that needs to go on is the back plane, which I'm kind of waiting to do that until I get the holes drilled, because I want to put a support up the middle and then maybe do some 45s around the edges of the box, but I'm going to wait to see on that. And I also have to put the amp in the back of the box. But the speaker boxes are coming along quite nicely. They are all together as far as the outside of the box, except for the rears. Again, that's because I want to get the sealed chambers in, the port for the woofer. I want to get all that in before I put this in, because I want to figure out where I'm going to put the crossover at inside the box, and how I'm going to do the wiring, and how I'm going to mount the woofer, how I'm going to run wires through, and I'd like easy access inside the box to do all that. So for one day though, pretty good progress. I've had some fitment issues on some of the pieces. When I put the top, the sides, and the front on, it left me with a little bit of a gap, you can see here. So I'm not happy about that. That's quite unfortunate, but it just turned out to be that when these were cut at an angle, they just didn't perfectly line up to the dimensions they should have. So it is what it is though. So part of the reason I bought a printer, and one of the cool things about having it, is I can go up to my computer upstairs and make a part, come down here and print it out, and it costs next to nothing, and it takes just a little bit of time. So I don't know if you can see that, hour 30 minutes. So but this part is going to go onto my router. If you guys have ever seen jigs that will bolt onto the bottom of like a handheld router, and it's got a bunch of different selections in it that you can put a nail in, and then you can route out a circle. So that's what this is going to be for. So the tool turned out perfect the second time. All the screw holes line up perfectly. The hole for the router is perfect. All the selection holes for the Sizing looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is lower this 1/4 inch at a time for the first two. So I'll do 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and then maybe 1/8 inch and see how that goes, because once you cut all the way through, the router can go anywhere. So you have to leave some material left so that you can cut it out with a jigsaw, and then you'll still have the perfect circle on the top that you can use a flush trim bit and flush trim the rest of the hole out the rest of the way. So I got 2 out of the 3 holes done on both speaker boxes. The 3-inch hole is too small to be done on my router, so I'm gonna have to make another template and find a way to get that cut out. But as far as these two are concerned, I'm really happy with them. I'll be able to use the same method on the 12-inch hole for the subs when it comes to that. But you can kind of see over here. Man, what is this fucking on? My light started dying on me. So you can see there's a lip there. That's where I went from plunging and going around, and then I cut it out with the jigsaw. And then that lower lip is where I went in with the flush trim and flush trimmed all the way through. But they are perfect. Normally I would just take a nail, 2 nails, and stick it through a piece of wood and then just scribe a line the distance that I need, and I would just cut it out with a jigsaw. But you'd end up with a misshapen hole, and with this way you don't get that, and I'm really happy with it. I just got the holes for the subs done in the sub box. After that, I went back out and cut out the hole for the plate amplifier. And then as you can see, I got both 3-inch holes done. They did not turn out as nice. Just, I don't know. I'm still happy with it. Whatever. So, this guy, I'm going to make sure everything fits, and then I'm going to start filling all the tiny little seams and nail the holes from when I put nails through it. I'm going to start filling all that with wood filler, and pretty soon I'll be doing a final sanding on this and then staining it. Amplifier fits perfectly. Very happy with that. So how I drilled this out, or I should say routed it out, I marked out the size that I needed and then cut out slightly smaller than that with a jigsaw, and I just clamped wood on 2 sides next to it so I could get nice rounded corners. It's all perfectly smooth. Looks like it was cut by CNC. Alright, so the sub box is just about ready to be sanded for the final time. I got all the holes drilled for the plate amp so I can smooth all those down. I got all the holes drilled for the subs. I ended up not using T-nuts and bolts. I decided I'm just going to use screws. These things are not powerful enough that I'm worried about the screws pulling out, so I'm just going to use screws instead of that. And I got all the edges filled in with wood filler. So I just glued the port in, or the top side of the port there. So I'm cutting out the holes for the port on the front face of the box. So what I'm doing is I drilled 2 1/2-inch holes and then just took the jigsaw and cut out this middle part so that the router only is hitting one side when it's trying to cut, and then I just went in and flush cut with all these sides of the port. So I'm going to come back afterwards with a curved bit so it'll round this edge over and should make it look pretty cool. So at this point the sub box is pretty much done. The only thing as far as what I need to make for it is just the face for it, but the box itself is done. I got all the edges lined up real nice. The next thing for this is going to be getting it cleaned real well and then putting sealant on all the seams inside, and then making the face like I mentioned earlier. But these guys, I got them all sanded. I still have to fill in all the edges and chips and whatnot with filler. I did take some time while the wood filler was drying on the sub box to get the rear of the speaker boxes drilled for where the terminals are going to be for the wires coming in, and then where the crossover is going to sit. So those are all set, ready to be put on. The other night after work, I put the middle framework together for the covers for the faces. So these are the parts that'll actually get covered with the suede, which you'll see that here shortly, hopefully, in one of the upcoming clips. But those are done, so I'm gonna get cleaned up a little bit, clean this mess up, clean this area up, because I gotta work out tonight and I don't have room right now. So I ended up not cleaning up. I did get the amp in, and I was able to put the subs in, and I tried it all out with just these little tiny guys, and it sounds pretty good. Anyways, onto this. I did get it all sealed. I made a while ago and printed these little parts. It has a 45-degree angle there and there, 90-degree there, and then a rounded edge there. And this allows me to, well, you can kind of see, smooth out the sealant real nice. So got a real nice layer in there, looking good. But then today I've been working on the face. So where the subs sit, it was going to hit this inner piece, and so I don't really want to lift it up because I've got it set in place, but I took my router and some wood and made a jig. I was able to router those out. I had a little oopsie there, but other than that, it went pretty well. So at this point, this piece here is the framework that I will be covering in suede, and then this outer lip is going to be, I'm going to router a nice little radius on there all the way around, and then this will get stapled and glued onto this. So it'll all be one piece. I'm probably going to have maybe 6 screws holding it in, or 6 bolts, so it'll be removable. And again, it'll probably make more sense once I get it all together and you can see the finished product. But so I just measured out and drilled where the face will be mounted at. It's going to be in these 6 spots, and you can kind of get a better idea of what I was talking about with the face being cut out for the sub to go under it. The actual surround comes about even with the trim here, so I'm not too worried about the surround coming up and hitting anything. It's more the basket missing the centerpiece. So now that this is drilled, I need to get some T-nuts to put in the box. But other than that, now that I got those holes drilled, the box is done and this is done. So I just got done putting the first layer of polyurethane on the box. I stained it last night, let it dry through the night, and then put the first layer on today. I used a brush and it laid kind of wavy, so I went to the store and I brought some foam brushes, but I'm not entirely happy with the finish. I'm gonna let it sit the rest of the day, and then tomorrow I'll lightly sand it to get all the imperfections out, and then I'm gonna paint it with the foam brushes, and hopefully it'll leave a better finish than what I did today. And I want to put the second coat on it just for a little bit more durability. But that piece is done, and then the piece I was working on yesterday is at the same spot. So while that stuff dries, I've been working on the speaker boxes. I got them all sealed up except for obviously the back plates. So as you guys will have just seen, I got the boxes all together, gave them a little test bump, and I'm just thrilled with them. Compared to a lot of stuff you can buy, these speakers were incredibly cheap. I think I've got somewhere in the neighborhood of like, I want to say like $70 per tower in speakers. I guess maybe like 85 or 90 including the crossover and whatnot. But compared to what you can pay, that's incredibly cheap, and I was quite happy with how these sounded. Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, like that's like a pretty common sound quality check song. Any of the older folks who might watch this, they're gonna know what I'm talking about. The bass drum from the set, nice and chef's kiss. I was in the drum line. I've been around drumming for a long time. The way this reproduces the bass drum kicks is like perfect. Like if I turn this up and just played bass drum kicks, like it would sound like there was a set sitting in front of me. I was very happy with that as far as the little woofer and how he sounds. That turned out amazing. I'm thrilled with the tuning on it. I got all the wiring done. As you can see, it's all ran through nicely. All really easy to do. I can fit my impact inside here and just zip all the bolts for the crossover out. I did get the back of the boxes on. As you can see, there's the connections to go into the box. So right now the next step is going to be getting my sealant and sealing up the back of the box. And once that's done, I might do a little bit of body working inside the port, because you can kind of see there's a little bit of an opening there, and I'd like to make it look as seamless as possible, but that'll kind of all get done when I do the body working. So main thing is sealing up the back, and I'll start the body working tomorrow, and I hope I can have these stained tomorrow. I think that should be well within my what I can get done. And I'd also like to get the second coat of polyurethane on the sub box. I got the foam brushes like I talked about earlier, so hopefully that'll turn out real good. But very, very happy with the progress today. Really thrilled with this. So I got the sub box sanded this morning in prep for the second coat of polyurethane. I got the speaker boxes sealed up last night. They're outside. They're going to be sanded next. But my parents are gone right now, so I figured while they're out, I would work on this. So this is going to be the face for the sub box. So my plan for this is, you saw I've made the inner framework, and I'm obviously covering it with this fabric, which is black micro suede. So it's the same thing I have on the headliner and the Jetta. I love this stuff. It's really pretty. So I'm wrapping the inner framework, and then I have those pieces, which are going to make a frame around this, and they will be stained and polyurethane coated. So it'll still have a border that's the natural wood, but all I'm doing is stapling it along the side. I just put staples in my nail gun, and I'm just working my way along. Well, I need to vacuum it to clean it up, but I am surprisingly happy with how this turned out. I had to take a break and staple the corners better because the glue came undone. I've never had glue not hold a piece together, and it broke on 3 out of the 4 corners, so I just went through and did all 4 corners and just sent a ton of staples, or not staples, nails through them. But went back along, nailed everything. My plan now is I'm going to take some of that contact cement. It's what I use to do the carpeting and whatnot on my sub boxes, and I'm going to apply it under, like here, in between the staples. And once that bonds, the staples will be useless because that stuff does not let go. Once it grabs, it's not going to let go. And it'll allow me to form the suede down into these pockets I made. So I think that looks so cool though. The contrast of the wood to the black is really nice. So this is the contact cement I'm using. The stuff gives off a lot of odors, so I would do it away from flammables and outside. I know we all ignore labels that usually say that, but that stuff is actually pretty bad. I got this all coated though. You can see I got where I cut those pieces out. Those flaps are pulled in. The edges are all nice and tucked up. Just got all the pieces done that will be trim for that screen looking thing that you just saw. And I just finished the second layer of polyurethane on the box. I used the foam brush this time and I was a lot happier with how it turned out. You can kind of see how much flatter it turned out. So the second and third layer of poly went on pretty nicely. I went into work and the box was able to dry during that time. When I was sanding it, I didn't sand the back here because you don't see it, so there are still some waves in it. I don't know if you can really see that. Yeah, you can. But the other sides that I sanded are perfectly smooth now. So like the bottom here, there are no waves in it. Looks real nice. So I'm hoping that the sides, the top and the front will all look like that as well. So while the poly is drying on the back of the sub box, what I've been working on is getting the faces done for the speaker boxes. So these proved to be a little bit more difficult because the woofer, I had to cut out for the sides of the woofer. I had to cut out for the 3-inch speaker as you see there, and then a lot down here at the bottom for the woofer. So this actually protrudes enough that I'm actually going to have to go into the outer trim and slightly take some material out of it for it to clear. So these though, these inner pieces fit now, so I'm going to go get that trim piece, modify it so it'll clear the speaker, and at that point I'm going to sand these frames, sand that bottom piece, and then all that stuff is ready for staining and poly. And at that point, the only thing left that needs body working is the 2 speaker cabinets themselves, so I'll start working on that. So when I'm installing the T-nuts, whether it be for the speaker or in my case, I'm installing these for the front plate that's going to cover up the speakers. What I do is I take the nut, put a little dab of glue on each side, and normally if you have the space you can just hit it into the hole with the speaker. You have to obviously drill the hole out big enough that the center part of the T-nut will go up in it. But once you get the hole drilled, glue on here. If you can hit it with a hammer, but if you don't, you just take your bolt with a couple washers, and like for me, I obviously cannot fit a hammer in the little tiny sealed box for my 3-inch speaker. So what I'm doing is kind of precariously feed it in there with one finger, get my bolt started, and then the tongs on the T-nut will stop it from spinning. So what I can do then is just tighten this bolt down and it'll pull that T-nut up and squish it so that the prongs get embedded into the wood. You get a nicely set T-nut. Crank that puppy down. There you go. Alright, so I got the third side of the sub box coated with the polyurethane yesterday. Been letting it dry overnight. And while that was drying yesterday, I worked on that framework that I had out for the front of the box. I got it all nicely trimmed up, got it sanded. It's all ready for stain. Got it just waiting for these to be done now. So this morning I went through this one and put wood filler on all the little nail holes, and then I went and ate, and now I'm getting ready to do this one. Once I get these done, then all the rest of the wood that I've cut up for this project, it's all ready to be stained. So pretty happy about getting this all knocked out. I've had a pretty productive day so far. So on the sub box, I was able to get the top and the left side of the box, or right side, however you want to look at it. I got them coated. They turned out beautiful. They're both pretty well dry, so I'm going to flip it 90 and put another layer on the back here, because I sanded it this morning. It had some waves to it, and I got rid of all that. But I got a lot of staining done, so I was able to get the boxes. I was able to get the all the body working done on them, all the wood filler smoothed out, and I've got them sanded. I've got the trim for the sub box stained, or what did I say there? I got the speaker boxes stained, trim stained. I got all the little feet that I cut stained, and I just got done staining trim for one of the speaker boxes. And after I get the coat of poly on the back of that box, I'm going to set this up, verify that it's all the right size, and then I'll stain that as well. Alright, so I'm starting to work on getting this stuff ready for polyurethane. When I stained it yesterday, I cleaned it off with a wet towel, and it kind of brought out the dust, but it also kind of made some of the wood fibers stand up. So I'm sanding everything real lightly with 400 grit sandpaper, kind of knock that down, so hopefully the polyurethane will sit a little smoother. But as far as the sub box goes, with what I got it coated yesterday, all that was left was just this front, and I just finished coating that a few minutes ago, so it started drying, but it's laid down real nice. So I'm just going to spend the rest of the day starting to put coats on this stuff. So since the sub box is mostly dry and apparently it's snowing today, I've resorted to being in the basement again, just working on stuff. So since the sub box is all dry now, it's had, I don't know, 24 hours to cure or something, so I'm going to start putting it together. I'm going to put the amp in, get all the subs in, the wiring in, and I'm going to take it upstairs, hook it up to my speakers in my room, and see how it sounds. Before I do that, I'm going to take some of my cork and seal the edge of the holes so that no air leaks out, because the subs do not have a gasket on the bottom of them. So this is what I use as a gasket. You can get it really cheap on Amazon. So in putting this together, when I was putting the screws in, I was realizing that they were kind of twisting the edge of the surround. So I went back and cut out little circles with a knife so that the screws no longer interfere with the surround. I did notice in one spot, and I noticed it when I tested it with these in the box last time, that somewhere in here, one of the screws right by it, I didn't get enough glue and it's sort of raised up and is leaking. So you have to remember this box gets pressurized since it's a sealed box, so air will try to escape from anywhere, and it happened to push out where I didn't get enough sealant. So I go back and reseal that after I do the test I'm doing now. So as you guys just saw, I played some music with it. I'm pretty happy with it. I did get the parts of the surround that were leaking fixed up, so that is all good to go now. So now I'm back to working on this. Since the back of these boards were polyurethaned, I'm going to put the trim on, then I'm going to poly the boards with them attached. So I know that seems kind of goofy, like why wouldn't you do it first, but if there's any trimming that needs done while I'm putting it together, just because I'm not sure how it's all going to fit quite yet, I've test fit it, but once you put things together they kind of become a little cantankerous. So I'm putting this together right now. I'm just putting a small bead of glue on the inside where the two pieces of wood meet right there, and then I'm just using the nail gun and shooting nails into the outer trim so that there's no marks on the outside. So I got all the trim pieces put on. I'm pretty thrilled about how it turned out. Some of the edges didn't line up quite perfectly, but they're close enough that I should be able to just give them a little sand and then maybe put a little wood filler in there, sand them, stain them, and should be good to go. So I ended up putting nails through the each side on the top and bottom, but other than that I was able to shoot all the rest of the nails out, which makes it look pretty good. So now the glue is drying on this one. I went ahead and did the same method that I did for that one on the fronts for the speakers. So I've been making progress with the coatings. I was able to sand the MDF part of both boxes because I'd already put a coat on them before, so I sanded them to get them flat. Put a second coat on them. Hopefully they'll lay nice and smooth this time, and that'll be that. But I did put the first coat on the other two sides that you see here, so those look pretty good so far. But I'm done for today on this, and we're gonna go check out the other pieces I've done. So I've got all the feet hanging up here in the basement. I did them all just hanging one at a time. That took a while. That was really testing my patience towards the end there, but they all turned out pretty good. Laid pretty flat. I've got the second coat of poly on the little trim pieces here, the faces. As you can kind of see, that laid pretty well. I'll have to vacuum the suede to get it to look clean because it's kind of just dusty and looks disgusting right now. But turned out pretty good, I would say. Pretty happy with it. These pieces are definitely done. I'm not touching them again. So the backs of them don't really look that great because it was just a bit of a fight to get some of them to fit together right. But I think overall the finished product is worth it. It is time to put the sub box together. So everything is dry. I'm really happy with how it all is looking so far. So I'm going to get that guy put on the front, and I'm going to get those feet put on the bottom, and it should be all put together here in a few seconds. Well, I just got it all together. I am thrilled. All the sides line up really nicely. Unfortunately, the staining of the solid maple does not match the plywood, but it's close enough that, you know, it's fine. But feet are on. Not really sure how I feel about them. I kind of wish I'd made ones that were a little bit taller, but I think that width will look a whole lot better on the speakers. Since this unit is just so tall, it kind of just looks a little bit goofy. But here it is. The brass fasteners, definitely a good move. They accent the box really nicely, but all finished up. Everything's put together. Today I'm just going to spend some time putting poly on these. It's just going to be a waiting game, watching paint dry literally. So it's like a week, 2 weeks later after that last clip. I had a hell of a time getting the polyurethane put on these. It was just it would lay bad, something would land in it since I have to do this outside. There'd be a run, the surface finish would be bad, and I just had to keep redoing it and redoing it and redoing it. So the second box I'm actually still working on, but this one is done. So I got the speakers in, they're wired up. I'm still putting cork around the speakers like I did on the sub box, but other than that, everything looks real good. I'm in the process of putting the crossover in right now. Once that's all in, the woofer will go in, and then I'll put the feet on and the cover on like I did with the sub box. Alright, I got this one all assembled. That's a really pretty looking speaker. I really think that doing the feet, the space for the port, and then the grill, I really think it makes it look pretty neat. Pretty happy with how it turned out today. Hopefully I can get that second box, the poly finished on it, and then have them both done. So I'm sitting here months later at this point, editing the video, and I realized I'd never recorded anything talking about how my dad's reaction was of me giving it to him. So it ended up working out that he was out of the house for a while, so I was able to set it up. And when he got home, I said, hey, you know, I'm actually not giving this system away to my friend. It's actually staying right here. What do you mean? Well, it's yours. So that went over real well. We've had a lot of good fun listening to music on it. It sounds great. You guys will get to see that here in a few minutes. Kind of struggling with how to get my dad his music. So all his music, he either played on the radio back in the day, or he used to have cassette tapes, which over time have just degraded, and now they're just a bunch of fuzzily, barely recognizable mess. So I wanted to kind of keep with the old school, you know, these are from 70s, that's from the 90s. These are kind of olderish looking speakers. It's all wood, and there's no plastic, none of that. So I wanted to kind of keep with that, but I also wanted to get him the best sound quality that I could, considering the sound quality of how the albums were recorded. So some of the stuff like the Beach Boys, some of them are old songs, and the recordings that you have of these are just not that good. What I ended up coming up with was just using CDs. I bought a CD drive, a bunch of CDs. These happen to be the ones I picked. I've got some Maxwell CDs, I think. I can't remember. But I ended up going with these just because I had more of them in case I screwed up. But so far, they've all burnt on here perfectly. I think I've got 178 songs on these CDs. So he's got a good range of music. I sat down with him. We went through, picked all the songs he wanted. Some of them are more my songs, like George Thorogood. He doesn't particularly like them, but
what's your whiskey and your water, sugar in your tea? What's all these crazy questions they're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't want to see. Mama told me let's go. Mama told me let's go. That ain't the way that it's found. No.
So it's looking like this is going to be a pretty long video. If you have stuck around to this point, I appreciate you guys watching. I don't know how much more home audio content I'm going to do. I did enjoy making this stuff. I think it turned out pretty good. I learned a lot from it, from what I would do in the future. I've got some friends who have kind of reached out about possibly doing some stuff for them in the future, but we'll see how that goes. I kind of want to get back to car audio stuff. I've already been putting videos out on my Jetta, on the system on it, so I need to finish that up and then get started on the Toyota and et cetera, a million other things. But regardless, like I said, I appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day.